Hello, it's time for Combat Patrol Carnage. So it's a brand new week, a brand new issue, and we're on to a brand new delivery. And we're kicking off Delivery 8 with issue 27, the first of 3 issues, bringing us the Windrider Jetbikes for our Eldari Combat Patrol. So not only do we get the issue, but we also get our next set of data cards, and they're impressive. So we've got Chaos Space Marines ready for our next Combat Patrol, which will be starting issue 31. We have the Eldari faction abilities plus 2 new terrain cards. And of course we have the Eldari cards. So what do we get inside the issue? Well, we get our full build guide for the Jetbikes, including the 2 variants we'll be building. We have a quick paint tutorial all about relayering and how to bring our models back up to full brightness. We learn about the different Eldari aspect warriors, and then we have a lot of rules sections to cover as we're introduced to the core rules and the data record sheets for our first 2 combat patrols. So what do we get in this issue for frames? Well, we get 2 identical frames. This is P1 from the Jetbike kit, and pretty much every frame is identical. There are different torsos and different heads though, but each frame is labelled P1, P2 and P3, so perfect to identify. But yeah, pretty much every frame is an identical layout with the same equipment, just a few variants in certain components. And we also get our little flying stand bases with flying stands. For my space that I have for storing my models, I'm probably going to be using the shorter ones, as the taller ones were a little too big, I think, for the drawers that I'm storing my models in. So yeah, definitely using the shorter stands there. So before we hit the table, don't forget to do all the usual. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop me a comment down below. Love hearing back from you guys, and it goes a massive way to help the channel out. Another way to help the channel out is to support this series sponsor, which is warbay.shop. They have a huge selection of models for various different armies and game systems, from Warhammer all the way through to bolt action. They also stock all your hobby supplies and have recently started selling brand new Games Workshop stock. So if you want to check them out, there's a link in the video description. Head there, and who knows, you might find your next hobby bargain at a bit of a discount. Right then, let's head to the table and we'll check out our models. We'll build up one of each different weapon variant that we have to build, and we'll also have a look at those new data cards, and we'll learn our new painting technique as well. So here we are then with issue 27, and we've got our first 2 Jetbikes. So yeah, we'll be able to build up one of each of the different weapon variants. So we've got the twin shuriken catapult and the scatter laser. We've also got the shuriken cannon there, which we're not using for the combat patrol, but if you wanted to, it shouldn't be too hard to perhaps remove the majority of this, put a magnet on and stick a magnet on the underside. It's 2 halves that make up a hole here. So yeah, you can easily magnetize this if you wanted to quickly swap out your guns. But yeah, I'll be building up just as the combat patrol dictates. But yeah, there we go. There is one thing to be cautious about when it comes to clipping off all of the components at the same time, is some of these bodies might have little nubs on their shoulders, in which case you need to make sure you match up with the recessed back plate. Now have little recesses so you can match up the 2 halves of the body. I found that out the other day when I built up 4 at the same time and had a body that weren't matching together very well. It took me all the way to my last body to actually figure out what was wrong. So yeah, there we have it. That's our 2 Jetbikes. So we're building those in just a sec. And we've got our clear flying stand base, as well as sets of flying stands. So you do get 2 flying stands, so you've got a choice of either tall or medium length for your bases. So yeah, there we go, that's that. Right, last thing to look at before we dive into the magazine is our new data cards. So we have the data cards for the basic Chaos Space Marine Combat Patrol. So we've got our Dark Apostle there, who is the leader of our Legionnaires, who is the patrol squad unit, and they can be broken down into 2 5-man squads. We get 5 Havocs, who have a lot of heavy weapons, and we also get a Hellbrute with hammer and plasma cannon there as well, so that's going to be a nice little fun build for us to do. So yeah, we'll punch these out in just a sec. We also get the Strands of Fate faction ability, as well as all the stratagems, enhancements, and secondary objectives for our Eldari. We also get 2 new pieces of blocking terrain, so a armored container and a set of barrels. And now that it's finished, I can show you off my fully done container. And yeah, I think it matches the picture pretty well. And finally, and probably more importantly for the moment, is we do have our Eldari patrol data cards. So these will be useful when we get to issue 30, as I'll be able to have our first full game with the full basic combat patrol. So looking forward to that. So we can have a quick flick through our magazine now. So full contents for this issue: we have our build guide for our Wind Riders. We have a paint section looking at relayering and updating our collection. We have a read article all about the Aspect Warriors, and then most of the magazine is given over to our core rules introduction, our Combat Patrol Space Marines and Combat Patrol Tyranids record sheet as well. So how do we build our Wind Riders? So most of the components in this kit are identical, so it doesn't matter which bits go to which jet bike really. The only bits that are unique, again, doesn't really matter what film they go to. We have unique fairings here for the top of the jet bike. They've got slight variants of raised nub areas, etc. And again, we've got twin link shuriken catapult, which you need to build 4 of. Scatter laser, we need to build 2 of. And again, the riders, we have 3 variant heads, 3 variant torsos, but they are pretty much all interchangeable between the jet bikes, as they all go together the same sort of way. Then we got a painting tutorial technique page all about relayering. Relayering is a technique that is used to brighten up the highest parts of the model by building up layers of the original base coat colour over a shade paint. This increases the difference between the darkest and the lightest parts of the model, which can make the shadows of the model look darker. Start by making sure you know which colour you used on the shade paint. Check the relevant paint guide if you're unsure. When you're ready, thin the paint to a good working consistency. Next, paint thin layers of the original base coat colour onto the higher parts of the model, leaving the darker colours of the shade paint in the recesses and the lower parts of the model. Using thin layers, you can build up a gradual transition from the darkest colour in the deepest recess to the lightest colour in the highest part of the model where the light would catch. This technique is great for more organic shapes like curved surfaces such as a Tyranid's flesh, especially if you're able to use gradual transitions across the whole area. Over the page, we've got a little bit of a tutorial about how to utilise gradual transitions. So building up your layers, fixing any mistakes if you overspill areas. And then we move into our paint guide, so updating our collection. So we're relaying Wraithbone over all our Tyranid skin, picking out the teeth in the maw of our Psychophage. And we're going to do a transition, so leaving the part of the leg here closest to the claw dark, and then going bright up to the top torso. Don't forget to also relayer the Tyranid on your Space Marine bases. And for relayering on our Space Marines, we're going to be looking at picking out our white details, so the Captain's shoulder pad, all our Crux Terminatus, and the Farseer, we're going to be doing the same to the white areas on them, and the Screaming Pink on the cloak there. So don't forget to do your Guardians. Yeah, just check around the models, making sure you've got all your little individual pieces. And we've got a nice before and after gallery here, so come back when you finish to reference, making sure you've got everything as it should be. But yeah, our models are starting to look really good now. So, right, we'll bring in our Jetbikes, we'll build them, and we'll also then bring in our paint desk, and I'll show you how to apply these techniques to 1 or 2 models from the collection. So here we are with our Jetbikes. I've already clipped out my stands, and we'll glue those together now, as it'll take a while for them to dry. So, push that in there and put them over out the way so they have plenty of drying time while we build up for the rest of our jet bike. So the first components we need to clip out are parts 1 and 2, which form the main chassis of the bike. So I'll cut those out from both frames. So now we want to apply our glue all the way around the outside edge of our jet bike. And then lower our opposite half onto it, wipe away any excess. We'll set those off to one side to dry. So while those are drying, we'll cut out our next components. So you want 3, 4, 5 and 6 to form up the rest of the main body of the bike. So 3, the control console and handlebars. 5 here, the intake for the jet bike. 4, the exhaust. And finally 6, the footrest. So with all those bits cleaned up, we're ready to attach them to our jet bike's fuselage or chassis. So you want to put glue into this bit here where the pedals will go, glue on the back for the exhaust, and you want glue around here for the intake, and finally glue in here for the handlebars. And then simply drop them into position. So this is how Jetbikes should look after stage 2. Next up then, we want to add our rear details. So we've got these little guidance fins, and we've got the actual main Jetbike stabilization fins there. So components 9, 10, 11 and 8. So let's cut those out and get them cleaned up. And on our jet bikes, so we've got the little stabilization guidance fins there. So stick one on either side. And they should be out to the side like that. Even though these components are individually numbered, I don't think it really matters. They're all shaped the same way. There we go. As for the rear fins, so you've got one that goes on either side, and they go into these square holes in the center here. So just run some glue into the square hole. Then we've got the pegs here which need to match up. And again, they should fit sort of like that. So you've almost got an X forming. There we go. So up next is our front fairing and the point of the chassis there. So 7. And on the frame, we only have part 16, which isn't actually numbered here. So they've got a bit of an error here when it comes to components. So part 16, you want to cut underneath like that, so we get the tabs removed at the flat, and these bits we can clip off. So to apply our glue, we want to run it around the edge here. Like so. Then we'll lower the bottom into the top of the jet bike. So it all sits flush like so, pressing firmly. we should have everything lined up nicely like so. And onto our actual jet bike, so we want to run a bit of glue along each flank, and these will slide into position like so. There we go, our jet bike is near completion. All we've got to do left is glue the gun in place. And for that we need to change page. So we've got the display console for the rider, and we've got the gun to glue on as well. So we want our flat piece here, which is part 15. We want the little triangular piece, which in the instructions it says 45, but this is numbered 32. I'm guessing there's another piece on one of the other frames that is numbered 45. Then we want our guns, so off this frame we'll take the twin shuriken catapult. And this one will take the scatter laser. So we'll clean those up and then we can get them glued to our bikes. So we've got two ways of building our screens. So we can either have the screen exposed, in which case we leave this tab attached, or we can cut it off if we want to have a more flat and streamlined top to our bike, which I think is what I'm going to go for. So we apply glue to the top piece here. Then we've got two little nubs on the underside of our top plate, and they fit in like so. And then this glues down to our jet bike. And finally, we turn our bike upside down, and we've got this little oval here, which we put some glue in. Then we can attach our weapons, so the twin shuriken catapult, and the scatter laser. So that's the bikes built. Up next we're going to build the riders. I'll quickly build just one of them, as they are all pretty much identical. So to build our rider, we just need to cut out all the body components. So we've got the head here, part 19. Rear torso, part 24. The main torso, part 26. Arms, 22 and 23. Finally our legs, 30 and 31. So we'll get those cleaned up and we can glue them together. So first part to do is to glue the torso together. I want to leave this to dry as it will take quite a while for it to fully connect. Line everything up. Once the torso's dried, we can glue on the legs. So put a bit on each hip. Then we got a little notch that'll go into a groove on the leg to help it sit in the correct position. And again, we'll leave that to dry for a bit. Once the legs are dry, we can glue in the head. And then we just got the arms. So put a bit of glue in each socket again. And again, we got little notches for each arm to sort of swoop into a position. And we'll bring in our bike. So while the glue is still malleable on the arms, we'll put a bit of glue on all the contact points. So the seat, the feet rests and the handlebars. Push our body into position and get the arms sitting just right. And there we have our first jet bike. And here's one I prepared earlier. So what's left to do is to attach them to their flying stands. And for the moment, we'll just friction them in, as we'll glue them on once we started getting the base coats down. When we come to painting them in issue 29. So there we go. One twinning shuriken catapult and one scatter laser jet bike ready to add to our Eldari. We just need 4 more now. So we'll get those of issues 28 and 29 and we'll be able to bring them all to bear in a full game in issue 30, and we've got a trial game where we practice and utilise their skills in issue 29. Alright, up next, let's bring in the paint desk and we'll apply our relayering to a termagant. So here we go, we've got a termagant to use as our reference model for this technique. So we know which base coat we used, it's Wraithbone. So we're going to go back to that. We'll get some prepared on our palette and then we can start applying this new technique. So we'll use the layer brush that we got with our subscriber gift. Perfect brush for relayering with on these smaller models. And onto our model, so we're going to relayer up these flatter areas of Tyranid flesh, leaving all that Carabao crimson in the recesses. It's going to be quite a slow process, but just go with multiple thin layers instead of one thick one. There we go, our termagant's flesh has been relayered. And so you can see the difference. Here's one that I'm yet to paint. And yeah, that's definitely improved our overall look to our Tyranids. Oops. So you just need to do this to all the models in our collection so far. And don't forget, of course, to do all your Space Marines and your Eldari models as well. So that's it for issue 27's build and paint guides. So we've got our first two Wind Riders built. And I'm off to start painting these up to the magazine standard. And I will be painting a couple on camera when we come to issue 29 and that paint guide. And we've relayered our first model. I am going to go off and relayer the rest of these, hopefully in time for playing a game. Well, I'm behind on filming this week due to busy week on the farm and my studio being inaccessible for an entire day. So yeah, I need to do a lot of catch-up work in not a lot of time. But that's it for this video. Up next then, it's a quick and easy lore article, and then we're on to our new rules. So I hope you'll join me for that, and all that's left for me to do is to say thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you next time on more Combat Patrol Carnage. Goodbye.